Yes, you guys, welcome back. I'm Nini FC. This is Blue Line CV, and today I'm here to bring you guys the player ratings video after that disgraceful, shocking defeat against Sheffield United earlier. 3-0, and it could have been 4, 5, 6. That was how bad we were today, and I'm not going to hold back with the player ratings. You guys know I like to keep things objective. Watching these goals again and seeing the manner in which we conceded them, it's really brought back some anger. So to start with things, we start with Tammy Abraham up front. I thought that some of the criticism that Tammy is receiving isn't as fair, in the sense that it wasn't necessarily his fault for the loss today, but that don't take away from his performance. For me, this game highlighted how much Tammy still has to learn and develop. I mean, that's understandable. He's only 22 years old. I think we all kind of knew that. But it's things in his game like his timing, his anticipation, using his jump as well. I think that for a guy who has such a great frame like him, he doesn't get the best out of his aerial ability. I think that can definitely be worked on a lot more, because we're a team that likes to put crosses inside the box, and I feel like that aspect needs to be a bit better. How often is he getting underneath crosses, not putting enough power there, the direction not being there either? It's definitely something he has to put a lot of work in, because at times we need his ability to hold the ball and be that outlet for the team when we are struggling deep on our own half and need to pump it forward. So he does have time on his sides, but that does not take away from his overall game. 5 shots on goal, and you know, he tested at times, but still that quality wasn't there. I'm going to give Tammy a 5 out of 10. We now move on to Willian down the right hand side, and even though he's been one of our best players this season, and even though he's been one of the best players during this restart, this is a player ratings video based on today's game. And yes, I could tell that Willian was tired. He was not his same sharp self, and he uncharacteristically, and I'm going to say that, uncharacteristically allowed that runner in behind him, didn't follow the run. It was poor on his part, and that's something Willian isn't doing time and time again. But today I felt like he was just lethargic. He wasn't sharp enough. He wasn't as involved. He didn't really test the keeper with anything too, and that creative spark just was not there. I felt like he was getting outpowered by Sheffield United at times too, and you know, this definitely wasn't his best game, even though he wasn't our worst player today. So for me, I'm going to score Willian a 5.5 out of 10. We now move on to the left-hand side, and you know, my criticism of Pulisic is going to be similar to Willian's, because, you know, Pulisic alongside Willian, they've been our 2 best players during this restart. But I feel like all the games, the congestion of how many games we have to constantly play every few days, you know, it's starting to take its toll on some of these players. Now, even though I sympathise for why the performances were poor, that still doesn't take away from the poor performance. You know, I felt at times Kristensen was overrunning the ball, and at times his passing selection wasn't as great either. I think that this was the game where, you know, if we can't play direct, I feel like Kristensen has to maybe hold the ball a bit better and have some more playmaking abilities to his game. So, you know, I can't really use that against him as much, though, because, you know, he is a direct style player, and that's how we use him in the team. But, you know, when the game isn't going in your favour, sometimes players need to show a bit more. Again, it doesn't take away from his overall performance this season, and for today's game, I'm going to score Kristensen a 6 out of 10. We now move on to the midfield 3, and I'm going to start with Jorginho in the base of that midfield. Now, this was one of his poorest games. Easily one of his poorest games. He was not on it today. The passing was god awful. Didn't give the team a platform whatsoever. Didn't find a single man with any forward pass. No quality, no pace, no swerve on those passes either. And, you know, I feel like maybe this wasn't the best move for Lampard to use Jorginho. And for the rest of the game, when you're pushing forwards and putting more men forwards, leaving even more space in behind. In that sense, Jorginho was just left out there to basically suffer, because we know that he doesn't have the physicality to cover those grounds in that distance. But still, just the overall game, his weakness too. Poor body positioning as well. This was a really poor game, and in that sense, it really highlighted why Kante has been a big player for this team, and he's been one of the main reasons why we've been a lot stronger and a lot better. You know, this was absolutely shocking today from Jorginho. I'm going to score him a 3 out of 10. We now move on to Mason Mount, and yep, this was a very poor game. some uncharacteristic, sloppy use of the ball in our own half. He was the main reason why we conceded the first goal due to more sloppiness too. And when Lampard mentioned that lack of technical ability at times, I think he was speaking indirectly about Mason Mount too, because Mason's a lot sharper than that. And his technical ability today was poor. He was getting caught on that ball time and time again. He was not receiving on the half turn. Was not his best performance. Could it be maybe because these guys are young and due to how many games we're playing in such a short amount of time, it does take its toll eventually? Maybe. That could be the football coaching physio reason behind things. But as a fan, he really put the team under a lot of pressure and he has to learn from this game today, get better and improve. I'm going to score Mason Mount a 4.5 out of 10. And to complete the midfield three, I'm now going to move on to Ross Barkley. And to be honest, I can't really fault Barkley for anything in this game today. I didn't think he did anything bad. I thought he was the only midfield player showing a bit of something. He was our best midfield player, to be honest. He got 2 key passes, completed 3 dribbles as well, and his pass completion rate was good too. I'm sure he'd like to get a bit more involved in the game, but tactically things were hard and, football is a team game. If a certain amount of players aren't able to get into the game, that's naturally going to affect what other players can do. But today, I didn't think Barkley did anything bad. I'm going to score him a 6.5 out of 10. We now move on to the back four, starting on the right-hand side with Rhys James. Now, I think what could be quite interesting is whether Rhys could have been used in midfield today. We know that for Wigan, the second half of last season, he played in that position, and against a team like Sheffield United, where maybe some power and some industry was needed, Rhys James could have been that perfect fit. Today, similar to Ross Barkley, I don't remember too much wrong from him. For the second goal, I blame that mostly down to William for not tracking that run. That wasn't Rhys's to follow. Rhys tried his best to stop that. I thought offensively, he tried to provide something. He played some pretty good crosses inside the box, so he has to get credit for that. And defensively, he was competing, he was still there. And I didn't see him get dominated down that side either. Of course, it's new for him because teams are now targeting that right-hand side more. But to be honest, you guys, I haven't really seen Rhys crumble too much from this. I think he still copes, he's still adapted, and he still provided something to us in the final third. So I'm going to score Rhys James a 6.5 out of 10. Moving on to Andreas Kristensen. Wow, really poor performance again. It's weird because Kristensen is known for his positional sense. His involvement for the second goal, poor. Didn't cover his zones behind him, and it doesn't stop the first cross. I think sometimes you have to be in that best position to do that. Kristensen, I feel like he's getting targeted even more by opposition teams. Teams that have big, strong strikers, they are literally just looking to demolish him, eat him up, destroy him. And, Kristensen's really getting bruised and battered in every single game now. So it's quite obvious that some work has to be done to strengthen him, given that upper body strength or something, because, he is starting to suffer for that. And I think when he gets a few knocks quite early, that affects his overall game as it goes on. He gets more phased by things, he gets more dazed by things too. And, if he wants to be a Premier League defender, he has to adapt, he has to cope, and he has to get better in this aspect. I'm going to score Kristensen a 5 out of 10. We now move on to Kurt Zouma, and yes, I understand that maybe he played a small part for the second goal, but for me, that wasn't a major part compared to the mistakes that Willian and Kristensen made. I thought he was the only one, again, as always, trying to make those last-ditch tackles too, and a few times he stopped some good counter-attack opportunities that Sheffield United had. There was one moment in particular where Jorginho made a mistake and Mousse could have made it 4-0. Zouma did just enough to put him off to stop us further embarrassing ourselves, and that's the type of impact that he's brought to the team. It's got me thinking, if Kurt didn't start this game where you have 2 strong strikers in McBurney and McGoldrick too, wow, I think we would have suffered even more. I'm going to score Zouma a 6 out of 10. And to end things with the back four, we move on to Azpilicueta, and his game was pretty interesting. I bet he didn't expect to play so many different roles in 90 minutes. He played left back, he played right centre back too, and then he played right back as well. 3 different positions in 90 minutes. Again, I think maybe he has a shout at being maybe our best defender today. Like players like your Barkleys and your Zoumas and your other players too, I didn't feel like Aspie was at fault today. He tried his hardest, he was valiant. I think I've noticed one interesting thing about how Aspie provides ball in the final third. Down the left hand side, I'm starting to see that Aspie is playing more of those vertical forward passes. And I think maybe playing on the left-hand side opens up more passing angles for him. And it's starting to help us out in attack too. So for me, I'm going to score Azpilicueta a standard 6.5 out of 10. And to end things with Kepa in goal, I didn't think he was at fault for anything today. For the first goal too, he did his best with that double deflection that he faced. And for me, the pace of the ball just wasn't strong enough for him to really parry it into a direction he wanted to. So it was purely reflex. And for the other two goals, they were literally simple goals that could be scored. And there's nothing you can really do to stop them. Yeah, there's not much to say. I'm going to score Kepa a standard 6 out of 10. We now move on to the substitutes, starting with Loftus-Cheek. And, you know, he played in midfield. He had some nice touches of the ball. He sped the tempo of our game up, which was interesting to see, but he did not have enough time. So I'm going to score him a 6 out of 10. We now move on to Hudson-Odoi, and to be honest, he had barely any time to play. So it's not even worth really mentioning this game. He'll get a standard 6 out of 10 just for appearing, because that's like the standard score you get. We now move on to the third player, and that's Marcos Alonso. Marcus came on and was heavily involved on that left hand side. I think what didn't really help the team was how many different formations we used in that second half. It meant that there was no platform to build, there was no momentum we could build as well. And in that sense, I guess the impact that Marcus could have just wasn't there at all. A few times so that he did get forwards, especially one moment near the end of the game, I felt like his crossing and distribution inside the box just isn't there, and it's this lack of ability at times that is stopping us from going to that next level, which means that we can only solve that situation by buying better players for those positions. We didn't really do anything too bad. You know, the whole team was tasked with pushing forward, so space left behind was just a byproduct of what Lampard said. Alonso's going to get a 6 out of 10. Moving on to Olivia Giroux, and he was involved aerially quite a lot. Now, unfortunately, he wasn't involved too much on the ground. You know, we were exclusively pumping long balls inside the box and telling him and Tammy Abraham to fight alongside the back five of Sheffield United. So it had middling success. Giroux tried to provide something, but again, there wasn't too much time. I think he had one effort and one effort off target. He's going to score a 6 out of 10. And ending with Rudiger. Really not good. For me, he's just not a top 4 standard defender. I think for a squad defender role, he'd be okay for that, but for me, he does not start. I don't know what he was doing for that third goal. Body positioning was negative, awful. He just made things much more difficult for himself and then ended up doing absolute madness, to be honest. I thought his passing from deep was not accurate too. Tasked with playing long balls inside the box, constantly missing his man. Yeah, really poor, really bad. I'm going to score Rudiger a 4 out of 10. And to end the player ratings video with Frank Lampard, this was probably his worst game tactically. Now, I can sympathise to a degree in the sense that, you know, there's not so much Lampard could do in terms of preparation for this game, because you're constantly jabbering left, right and centre. You know, players need to recover in between games as well. You're basically not even training tactics, to be honest. You know, you're literally just going game to game. So I can understand maybe why Lampard persisted with the same formation without maybe adapting to our opponents. But I think my main criticism was his response in the second half. There wasn't any new solutions. I didn't like how we lost the control of the game. Like, the tempo of our game was not there. You know, as the commentator rightfully said, we felt like individuals playing on the field, and I think that when you're changes for a game is making the team worse, then you're having a really bad day. This was not Lampard's best performance, and I'm sure that he'd be equally disappointed himself as well. I'm going to score Frank a 5 out of 10. And there you have it, guys. They were the player ratings. If you want to hear more of my thoughts and opinions, check out my match review. And of course, I've released a news daily video where I speak about Dean Henderson, a guy who showed today why maybe he could be the best keeper to sign if made available in this window. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Nini FC. This is Blue Lions CV. I'll see you guys later with some more videos.